record. Hi, my name is Robert Gibson, and I would like to walk over the Environmental Registry. So I will show my screen. Right now I'm using Zoom to record this video. So what you do is you type Environmental Registry in a search engine. It doesn't have to be Google. I'm just using Google as an example, but it could be DuckDuckGo is another one. So when you type in Environmental Registry, Ontario's Environmental Registry, it will take you to the old Environmental Registry, which is this Environmental Registry from a few years ago, so you can look up old notices. But if you want current stuff, you go to the new Environmental Registry. And I should say that the Environmental Registry is a requirement under the Environmental Bill of Rights. So you have a right to know about environmental decisions, right to comment on environmental topics, etc. So with this, there's a lot of different features that you can look at. You can look at consultations on a map, so you can see them visually, and you can do notices open for comment. So on this map, you can see that there's a lot of items that you can comment on. But if you wanted to look in your hometown, so let's say Peterborough, you can get a sense of what's happening in Peterborough. And this is just provincial items under provincial jurisdiction. I'll go over what you want to do with the federal level, which is a different process. And I'll talk about the Constitution, because that's in the Canadian Constitution, because that's important in understanding environmental policy and consultation as well. So you can zoom out, and there's about 4 items that you can look at in the area. So I'll click on one by Lansdowne. And this one is the Canadian Canoe Museum permit to take water. And it's a proposal. It's open. And you also want to look at environmental legislation as well, and know what ministry does what role. And you can look at those up on the ministry pages. So the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, you will tell you what the role is if you go to a Google search. Then there's the Ontario Water Resources Act, also 1990. And this is an instrument. Instruments are like permit to take water, permit like air certificate of approval for air emissions, water quality, things like that. And it says it's on the Canadian Canoe Museum. It says who wants this. And they talk about the details. And the requirements, the conditions of the certificate that they are requesting. And then there's the details of how you can submit to the Environmental Registry. And there's also a share feature, so you can email, put it on Facebook and Twitter. And that's important for engaging the public, because if your friends see it, then more people are going to comment on it. And this number is important, the Environmental Registry of Ontario number. And this is 019-3130. And that's important, so you can you don't have, you can come back to it and do research on what you plan on saying, like looking at wetland, if there's a wetland nearby, like the site condition, and the more knowledgeable you are about this, the better. But anyone can comment on this. Yeah, so that's one item, one feature that you should look at. And then those rules about like commenting, you can submit by mail or online. Online, well, in either case, you don't want to identify yourself when making a comment. And there's instructions on how to do that as well. So if I go home, I can look at other items. And then those instruments in the last 7 days. This can come in handy if you look like once a week. And you've commented on everything that was posted in previous weeks. All new postings in the last 7 days. So if you click on that, you get everything in 7 days. And you might not want to post on every item. there was the Rockex Mining Corporation, mineral exploration permit. So those may or may not interest you, but they're good to look at what's happening. And then those on the sidebar, recent policy, act, and regulation notices. So this is like the most recent things in policy, act, and regulation. And this is what I tend to focus on when talking about the Environmental Registry, because it impacts everyone across Ontario, and they'll potentially have significant environmental impacts. Some of the legislation passed recently changed environmental law considerably over the last couple of years. And so they also have the closing dates. You want to pay attention to the closing dates, because once they close, you can't make a comment on it. At least legally, you can't make a comment on it. And if you post on the Environmental Registry, the government is supposed to, well, they're required to consider all public comments on anything that's posted on the Environmental Registry. And you have the right to appeal legislation. And it's a lot easier to make a court case, and you'll more likely have standing if you standing is the basically the ability to go to court, and or the right to it impacts your right to go to court on a particular topic. But if you don't comment, you're not likely going to have a chance in a court case if you see the need for a court case. And then there's the Environmental Bill of Rights that is a companion to the Environmental Registry. It enables the Environmental Registry. So you can also search the registry. If you remember the EOO number, you can type it in here. You can also type keywords as well. You can, let's say you have you haven't been on the site in two weeks. You can enter the date that you're looking at and today's date, or whatever date you'd like. Let's say that you're looking for something that was a couple years ago. You can look for stuff that's open and closed for comment. those things that you should be aware of. Notices, especially now, all being posted to the Environmental Registry. And some of them have to do with municipal zoning orders, which impact the right to comment on environmental legislation. And they're good to be aware of, because sometimes the government tries to pass things off without going through the proper channels. The government was lost a lawsuit about changing the environmental changing the cap and trade system without consultation. So something like that you want to be aware of. And then those notice types: policy, regulation, and acts. But there's also bulletins and appeals and instruments. So instruments deal with water, soil, air, and other things. So you do want to look at bulletins, which will close for comments. But yeah, usually I look at policies, regulations, and acts. The notice stage: proposal, decision, and exception. And then this is where you want to know what the ministry does. So you can look at the individual websites, find them out that way. Look at the legislation, and you can use e-laws. And if you know the legislation that you're looking for, I'll go over e-laws in a separate video. And then this is where, if you know the acts that you're looking for, you're only looking at, let's say, the Drainage Act. Today, you feel that the Drainage Act is important, or the Endangered Species Act. You only want to look at those two acts. Maybe you're doing a research project, or you know that something's going on that impacts those two acts that you want to comment on. And then Endangered Species Act is a good one to look at. And then this is like all the different instruments. Approval of a municipal's official plan. That might be one that you might look at when the official plan is ready. Certificate of property use. That determines who the pollution, what the pollution level is like. Is it safe? Environmental compliance approval for air, sewage. permit to take water, etc. It's all there. So I'll apply filters to the Drainage Act and Endangered Species Act. So I have 8 results. And there was a Drainage Act regulatory proposal that just closed. So that's part of the reason why you want to stay on top of things as much as possible. Oh, and it's if you're looking on the online on here, it's eoo.ontario.ca. So most of these are closed for comment. But if you want, and you can also, when you're commenting on a proposal, it'll ask you, are you commenting on behalf of an organization or individually? So it gives you that option as well. I recommend connecting with an organization if you can, because it adds power to what you're commenting, but also commenting individually, doing both. So yeah, those 0 results. But let's say you wanted to just do policies, regulations, and acts. I usually do these together, these 3 together, because legislation is related. They feed off of each other. So those 18 results, so some of these may or may not interest you, but some of them have significant impacts on the environment. And a good place to look as well is environmental defense and the Canadian Environmental Law Association. Those are 2 good. There's more, but if you type, let's say you want to know if those what's been said on one of these. I'll try to find one that I know that those comment. So you want to know if those controversy or what's already been said, so you can educate yourself more. So if you copy and paste the title or the Environmental Registry number into Google, you can see if there's any controversy, and it turns out that there is something that's been written about the environmental statement of environmental values, and those are required from some of the ministries. And then you also want to look at the every year the Office of the Auditor General, the Environmental Commissioner under the Office of the Auditor General now, makes a report about environmental issues. And you want to go there. So there was a new news release. But reports by topic, usually environment. And then in 2020, there was the operation of the Environmental Bill of Rights, value for money audit, conserving the natural environment with protected areas, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from energy use in buildings, and setting indicators and targets in monitoring Ontario's environment. So that was last year's report. And they usually come out in November, but sometimes at other times. So that's another way that you can educate yourself. And also following social media as well, especially social media of known environmentalists or the website, or typing in the issue itself, like wetlands, biodiversity, and then you can comment on the issue. Let's see. Did I miss any? I'm just seeing if I missed anything important. Oh, I didn't look at if there was like a bulletin. And I'll go through like the appeal process separately. So they're all bulletins. And they approved a permit to take water. And then they say why consultation isn't required. And then so this is like as a result of COVID-19. And then there was controversy about the regulation 115/20 because they didn't all have to do with COVID-19. Some of them had nothing to do with the pandemic and could have still had public consultation. And then this one is Yeah, and then it just says why then. Yeah, and sometimes though, like super um, problematic. And then another thing that you can do with environmental registry is to write in newspapers, media, politicians. If you see anything that's very problematic in the registry. And then there's like the about features. Definitions are important, so they have a glossary of terms that you might want to know. And yeah, that looks like everything. I might like go into the comments. I'm not. You can make an account as well, and then there's also supporting documents. I'll just do this. When you click submit, you have the ability to comment without registering. And then you can have websites in your comment, but they ask you to describe the content, like a title or something. Yeah, that's about everything. So I hope that this walkthrough helped you be more engaged with the environmental registry. And I'll talk about other items in a separate video, such as like how do you know if there's a wetland near a site, and yeah, and it's also important to use multiple sites to learn to make a better comment. And I'll go through like commenting effective comments, but every comment that you make is awesome. If you make no comment, then nothing can be done. Well, thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.